This is my presentation on the Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine was originally created in 1947 by Harry Truman, right after World War II. The Truman Doctrine established that the United States would provide political, military, and economic assistance to all democratic nations under threat from external or internal authoritarian forces. So basically, it was created to protect nations from falling to communism or other forms of government that may not be the best for the nation. After World War I and II, the United States realized it may need to be more involved in foreign affairs. If we had joined World War I and II earlier, then the ends of the war may have came sooner, saving a lot of lives and a lot of destruction from being done. The Truman Doctrine led to ideas, U.S. ideals, and actions that still play a role in life today. The first country that the Truman Doctrine ended up really helping was Greece. Greece was having internal political issues between democracy and communism. The United States sent support for the fight for democracy in Greece. This aid ended up helping Greece and keeping it to be a democratic nation. During the Cold War, which was tension between the United States and Russia, there was a great fear of communism spreading. While trying to protect nations from falling to communism, this created even more tension with the Soviets. The first major foreign affair that the U.S. was involved with after the Truman Doctrine was the Korean War. Korea was split into North and South. The North was communist, backed by the Soviets, and we supported the South. The North and Russia started to push the South and try to take it over to make the nation one communist country. But the U.S. defended the country for over 3 years, and we ended up being able to keep the two countries separate. This was considered the first major victory in the war against communism. The second foreign affair the U.S. got involved with was that of the Vietnam War, which started in 1955. This was sort of like the Korean War, in which Vietnam was split into North and South, the North backed by the Soviets, which were communist, and the South backed by America. This war had a different outcome. It lasted nearly 20 years, and almost 60,000 Americans were confirmed dead or missing. And we weren't even able to protect the South from being overtaken by the North. So Vietnam was turned into a communist nation. After this, Americans became more wary about getting involved in other countries' political issues. The Truman Doctrine also ended up leading to the Marshall Plan, which was where the U.S. declared that $13 million in money and goods would be sent to recovering nations in Europe after World War II. This was to keep their governments from falling to communism and their economies from collapsing. At first, the Marshall Plan actually caused conflict with the Soviet Union, because the Soviets didn't allow countries near them like Poland to participate in it, even though they may have needed it. The Marshall Plan turned out very well for other countries in Europe, though. As you can see in these graphs, the economies of nations near 1948, which was when the Marshall Plan was enacted, extremely boosted after the depressions they were set into during World War II. Even though today there isn't much of a need to support weaker nations from falling to communism, the Truman Doctrine has made the U.S. one of the most involved nations in the world. The only real negative effect it had was the reputation after the Vietnam War, where soldiers committed war crimes that the U.S. was remembered for, and people in the U.S. frowned upon. Overall, though, the Truman Doctrine affected the U.S. and the rest of the world in a positive way. It protected countries from falling to communism and led to the recovery of many nations in Europe. It also created a positive legacy for protecting others for the United States and being a very involved nation. And these are my sources.